Well, hello everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's Connor here in a little bit of a different setting. We've got the parents over, so we're having to move things around a little bit. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. You're probably thinking to yourself, where on earth is Nancy Froston of The Athletic? Well, don't worry. She's going to be joining us in and around about 12 o'clock, everybody. I just wanted to pop on here a little bit early and speak about a few bits that are in the news and just give you guys a little bit of a prompt as to what we're going to be speaking about today. We'll be speaking about Willy Gnonto, we'll be speaking about Hugo Bueno, the interest there, and obviously we'll be speaking about Mr. Jonathan Rowe. Now, what do we know about Johnny Rowe? Are we giving it a go? What's happening behind the scenes? It's complicated, and it's exactly what I said yesterday. And Nancy might be able to give us a little bit more of an insight on what's going on, but from what I understand, it's 15 million. And if Leeds want to meet it, they'll meet it. I understand some people think it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's not. It is 15 million quid. If Leeds want it, Leeds can get it in terms of that. But I do wonder whether or not Leeds are even that close to agreeing, to sign Jonathan Rowe on the basis of maybe not being able to agree that fee. What we know is there are talks, but is it as close as people think would be my question. That's sort of how I'm looking at it right now, and hopefully Nancy will help us figure that one out. Now, what do we know? We know today that apparently Marseille have declared their interest, and as I was speaking to a friend off air, I'm interested in many things. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but I think as a Leeds United fan, we've seen this script before. Bournemouth were interested all of a sudden in Mr. Max Aarons, and that transfer started to transpire and happen extremely quickly after their interest. So, yeah, that does happen in football, doesn't it, everybody? And we know how these things sort of have worked previously when it comes to Leeds United. It feels like another club is in, and then boom, there we go. And that's the problem, as we all know, with being a second-tier side. You don't have the choice in what goes on. And that's why I would much rather play in a corporate bowl than your Sheffield Wednesday and your Derby counties every week. Give me that all day, even if it is a tripe first division. Even in a tripe first division, you have better players. And if you have better players, you have more success. So I think overall, listen, it's we'll have to wait and see what happens. We don't know anything for sure right now when it comes to Johnny Rowe. That rumour right now is that Marseille are interested. What they're looking at right now is Wahi as well, who is a left mid, a left winger, a right winger, can play across the front three, and a centre forward who sort of fits that Johnny Rowe profile, kind of. They're looking at him 16 hours ago. They're in negotiation with Lens for him. Not only that, but they're interested in the 25 million euro conversation with Arsenal for Eddie Nketiah, obviously formerly of Leeds United. So there's, it feels like they're their primary targets in Wahi and Nketiah, but it does feel like the Johnny Rowe stuff will maybe materialise if Leeds United are not to sort of get that deal done. There's talk right now of it being an 8 million deal when it comes to Marseille. And I can see a lot of people in the chat saying, well, how will they get it done for 8 million quid? Well, they won't get it done for 8 million quid. That's for certain. I'm sure the conversation will still be to Marseille. Once again, 15 million and it's yours. And I think Norwich are not moving on that. They had a bit of a Q&A last night where Ben Napper, the sporting director, was speaking about all of this. And he just simply said, Josh Sargent, Adam Eder and Johnny Rowe have their valuation. Clubs, if they want to discuss this and have a little bit more legs on it, they want to get further, meet the valuation. And that's exactly what he said at a Norwich Q&A last night. So if he's saying that, then, and that's what I'm sort of very aware of as well. As I've said to you guys, you don't have to believe me. Nancy might be able to give us a little bit of a clue on that at midday. So yeah, it's all very much in the air right now, and it feels. What I will say, everybody, and I think what we need to take into context here, we still have, in my opinion, the best squad in the league. Okay, it's all about sustaining, but obviously adding depth, of which Daniel Farke did speak about yesterday. But what I will say is, for me right now, there shouldn't be panic stations by Leeds United fans. There shouldn't be what we've maybe seen previously, where we've gone into a season and we've been like, oh, Jesus. We should really be excited for Portsmouth tomorrow. We should be thinking we've managed to really assemble a squad here that should be in the top two. We've assembled a squad which should be competitive. And as a fan right now, I'm really excited, like Johnny Rowe or not, when I would love Johnny Rowe. I'm not going to go back on that, everybody. But I think it's very, very key to note that, it's not Johnny Rowe and that's that. I think, Leeds are in a really good spot right now. Okay, well, without any further ado, thank goodness, I'm not going to have to speak to myself. Nancy is going to be with us for a short time only about 20, 25 minutes, but we can get some good conversation in there in 20, 25 minutes. So welcome. This is very formal, but I welcome you to the stage. Nancy, how on earth are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Nancy. It's trying to break through here. I don't know what the sunshine's like in Derbyshire area, but it's trying to break through here on the dark side of the Pennines.
Yeah, no, it's trying as well, but yeah, you never know, do you? I'll
No,
probably
you
be
don't.
kicking it down in a minute.
Yeah, I always get my mother telling me how lovely it is because they live in around the York area, and there's always banter. They're always bantering me about the harsh weather in Manchester and how in York it's always nice. Apparently, it's this sort of like metropolis apparently. So there you go. So she's coming up today to banter me about this weather, presumably. But okay, Nancy, look. We know what we're going to speak about today. at least from last time, it's maybe developed a bit. We've got a little bit more news. Let's start with it before we get into some of the other rumours. But it is Mr. Jonathan Rowe of Norwich City. Obviously, Leeds have been interested in him. It feels like the figure has been bandied around at 15 million quid. We were just speaking on here, and Norwich's sporting director, I think Ben Napper, was speaking last night, and he was saying, "Look, the valuation is there." For clubs to meet when it comes to Adam Eder, Josh Sargent. It feels like they're willing to sell, but they're driving a hard bargain down there, aren't they? What's the update on Johnny Rowe?
Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, I think, Leeds aren't the only interested club, basically. Not a huge surprise given his talent, but it's sounding like there's another club possibly from overseas that's in the mix for him as well at the moment. Again, it's kind of promising a way to hear the sporting director talking at Norwich, because all the sounds seem to be that they might be more willing to sell than perhaps Leeds are expecting, because Leeds have gone into this knowing that it's probably not going to be an easy deal to actually pull off. But he's a player that they're really interested in, and everyone can see why that would be based on the goals he scored and everything he showed last season. So the sort of entry point I think that we were hearing in terms of what Leeds might be going in at was that £7 million figure. I think Norwich will probably want more, but you start far apart and then you you move closer to obviously what works for both parties. So yeah, I mean, we've seen Leeds will go back like they did with Bogle. If they really want a player, they will go back for them until they reach a point where they've got fair value. And I think he'd be a player worth doing that for, even if they did have to go to 15. I think that would probably, I think that would work for a player of his potential. So yeah, it's kind of a, I don't know, who blinks first situation, who's happy with feeling they've got a good deal out of this. But yeah, it's got potential. It's not definitely a go, it's not definitely off, but there's room there for it to work.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like that. It just obviously Prague's got this reputation, hasn't he, of being a shrewd negotiator, and it was interesting. I thought, I don't know about you, Nancy, but I thought when it came to Farke's press conference yesterday, there was a lot of sort of this. He sort of reiterated his point of we will not overpay. Then obviously said it again, and I was a little bit like, I wonder if that's almost an indirect at the personnel or the person that we're looking at right now in terms of Johnny Rowe. But they might have to look at that. And I mean, do you think it's going to be a case of Leeds meeting that valuation with just add-ons? I mean, that seems to be how this sort of football circle works. And do you think as well it's maybe as advanced as Twitter believes, or do you think it's maybe, because how I understand it, Nancy, is if you've not met a valuation yet, we're talking right at the beginning of the negotiation, surely.
Yeah, that's it. I think nowadays you do see, if they don't come in for the fee that the club wants, the add-ons is the easy way to meet that. And sometimes those add-ons can be really basic, but it just sort of helps with the structuring of the deal. And that's the other thing in terms of when payments are coming, how they're coming, and what works for Leeds versus what works for Norwich. Norwich might want the money up front or anything like that, that could shape how this is done. So yeah, I think I don't think it would have made it out here if this wasn't progressing, basically. We probably all know that like the 49ers are really good at keeping things pretty under wraps, and the stuff that does make it out, it's normally going somewhere. Obviously, we've seen with Ljubicic, like that bid was knocked back, and we heard about that. But in this case, yeah, I think they're working hard on it. I don't know that Norwich are necessarily in a really strong position in terms of Rowe's contract as well. So that's another thing to bear in mind in terms of the time he's got left. So yeah, it could be that they announce. It'd be great to announce it before the weekend, but I imagine it'll be one that takes a little bit more time if they are able to do it. So I don't know that. As keen as everyone on Twitter is to have him unveiled on Saturday, well tomorrow afternoon on the pitch at Elland Road, I don't think we're at that speed yet. But yeah, I think they'll be working hard on it.
Yeah, it feels like there's another sort of name that's been bandied around as well, Nancy, when it comes to Hugo Bueno. Obviously, once again, that was bandied around from the Wolves side, as we know, and is probably frustrating for yourself at some points. Like Leeds don't really leak anything anymore. Have you heard sort of anything else on Hugo Bueno? Is that a bit of a dull link? Is there sort of anything from the Wolves side, or is it just a little bit, muted at the minute? That seems to have gone a little bit quieter.
As far as I understand it, that was fair, as in, Leeds are interested in him as an option in that position. And it feels to me that when you're looking for depth, that it would make sense to bring in a lone player there. I don't think they're going to go and spend loads on on another fullback for depth in those roles, given you've got Bogle, Byram and Firpo. But yeah, the interest is concrete. I think at the moment, Wolves kind of still see him as part of the picture for them. When I was speaking to, people asking the question there, it was kind of, the answer was, they like him, they want him to still be around the first team, but it's a long window, and that's kind of the the cause for the sort of note for hope there for Leeds fans. If but it's a long window is normally the sign that you can never rule out a move. Basically, if it gets down to the end of the window and they suddenly think, oh, maybe he'll be better off going out on loan. So yeah. Also, we know that Leeds don't put the clauses in, or don't usually agree to the clauses about appearance guarantees in terms of number of appearances, and sometimes that's a bit of a sticking point with Premier League clubs because they like that, which is totally fair and totally fine. But equally, it's good for Leeds in a way that they're not going to just like play a player that they don't want to, because
it's an interesting point on that, though, Nancy, isn't it? Because I was having this discussion with a friend the other day, and even when you look at someone like Johnny Rowe, Hugo Bueno, if we just take these players into context, Hugo Bueno's a left-sided player, of course, left wing back, left back, and then you look at Johnny Rowe, left-sided player, can play on the right, better on the left. I think Leeds, in a strange sort of way, it's a bit problematic, isn't it? Because right now, they don't have holes of which they can guarantee. I mean, we saw Liam Miller from Baz Cooper, who's a pretty decent hole source. We're saying that Liam Miller's about to sign for Hull. And it's interesting because there were so many clubs that you would look at and maybe say, okay, they're at a different level to Hull. Looking at him, including, there was discussion about us maybe having a glance at him and stuff. It's minutes, isn't it? And these players need that right now. And it's not just loan signings. It feels like these permanent signings as well. And Johnny Rowe's indicative of that. He won't want to move to Leeds and be competing for a shirt. He'll want to be playing every week, surely.
Yeah, that's it. And Miller was one of those, again, from earlier in the window. It feels like a long time ago now that we were talking about him. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I think it's probably more of a sticking point with loans, definitely, because that's something that the loan club will be asking for. Obviously, when it's a selling club, if they're getting the fee they want, they're not too bothered about whether that player is going to play elsewhere. But yeah, it's really hard, I think. It comes down to how much the player backs himself, what sort of conversations they have with the manager. these days it's a real pitching process from the buying club in terms of, you'll quite often hear of sporting directors or the manager basically doing a PowerPoint of, proving how important a prospective signing is going to be to their team, particularly when it's a young player or someone where they've got a choice of clubs available to them. So it's not unusual now for the selling club actually to have to do quite a lot of work to kind of win win the race for a player. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, and I respect any club that's basically not willing to roll over and go, oh yeah, we'll play you 15 times or guarantee you 20 starts a season or something, and then it becomes a headache further down the line if if the form's not there or whatever. You're not causing yourself that problem basically by being upfront about it, and that can go a long way actually in terms of honesty. With knowing where a player stands, that clarity is quite good.
Yeah, I guess just moving. You mentioned him a little bit earlier, Jubicic. There's been no other development on that either. I say it feels like that 3.3 million bid was promptly rejected, and Leeds just, I don't know, moved on, I guess.
Yeah, I think there was some acknowledgement that that there'd be interest from other clubs there as well. And so, I think there was an awareness from Leeds that either they might get outbid or, they'd kind of, it could be that there'd be other clubs, particularly in Germany and Europe, that would be in the race for him there. So nothing kind of new on that since then. And it depends, obviously, if they get someone else, we probably won't think about this much more, but if they don't, they clearly have a point where they're not willing to go any further. And I think Farke has kind of hinted at that as well, hasn't he? So, and that's fine, but as long as they get what they need, I think that, that's a reasonable place to be. But yeah, nothing further on that since then.
Yeah, and just sort of looking back to the Johnny Rowe situation, do we know how that 1 year clause will work, Nancy? Do we know if it's does Johnny Rowe, can he just activate that 1 year clause, or does it have to be sort of the club? How does that? So there's a discussion right now that he's in his last year of his contract, but that second year, can that just be extended by him and his team, or how does that work?
Yeah, so as far as I understand it, I think that's right. He's like in his final year, and then there's a additional option. It's hard. Like, it can be the case that the club can trigger or the player. Sometimes the option's not there for the player. Sometimes it's only there for the player. I'll be honest, I don't know. There was some suggestion to me that Norwich had the option as well, but like, I don't know 100% that the situation on that. But there is the option. There is an option there for either one side, the other, or both. So yeah, I don't think it's as strong a position in terms of the time left as maybe Norwich would like.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I guess there's two sort of final bits to talk on when it comes to transfers. Willy Gnonto, have you got any sort of like hunch that he'll potentially stick around? Are we just going to get that sort of? It's so difficult, isn't it, Nancy? Because it is that old chat of it's a long window, isn't it? So anything can happen. But right now with Willy Gnonto, I think we sort of need to maybe understand as a fan base that even if the Johnny Rowe situation doesn't get done, Leeds are looking extremely strong with Gnonto off that left, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think Leeds are confident that they can hold on to him. I mean, the real bonus is, I know that the situation with Somerville having a release clause will have been a surprise to a lot of people, or news to a lot of people. And from what I've been told, Gnonto doesn't have that, so he doesn't have a release clause, which puts the ball firmly in Leeds' court in terms of having quite a strong hand for negotiating if they do want to even have those conversations. Obviously, they've rejected this bid from Everton. Kind of the story from the Everton side was slightly different in terms of they felt they were edging towards a deal for a slightly lower figure than the 23. But again, you could be talking nuance in whether it was plus add-ons to get up to that figure. But then there was like a bit of a change in terms of I think there was an awareness that Somerville might be going, things like that. That always affects the picture. So I think really Leeds do want to hold on to him. He's got plenty to offer. I don't think this is a situation like last summer at all either, where he was unsettled. Everything I hear is that he's really knuckling down, committed to this season, and I thought he played pretty well on Saturday as well. So you can really add off that left side if that's where Farke's going to use him with Somerville gone. So I don't think it's as scary as where we were with Somerville, and it seemed inevitable.
What did you make of Daniel Farke's press conference yesterday? It was a long one, wasn't it? But we know he likes to talk and elaborate. Is there sort of anything that you picked out of that? Obviously, there was the transfer bits when he was talking about bits and pieces that Leeds still needed to do. I guess the follow-on question to that, Nancy, is: do you have a hunch that Leeds are going to do sort of, I don't know, maybe it felt like 2 or 3 more additions really with how he was speaking, not just the one.
Yeah, I think he's a very chilled character, or at least that's the way he comes across whenever we speak to him, and he's very measured in what he says. So I do take the stuff that he says regarding transfers and not being able to spend loads and not being able to get a direct 20-goal replacement for Somerville. I do take that fairly at face value in terms of, I think he's being pretty honest with that and upfront with that, probably to temper expectation a bit. Like, I don't think they're going to go and drop that exact amount of money, 25 million or whatever, on another winger or another forward that's going to guarantee you 20 goals. I don't think that's the way that Leeds are doing things. But yeah, so I think there's a degree of tempering expectation, but I do still think they will get what they need. I don't think they're going to leave him short. I think they're going to give him all the kind of depth that he needs, and I think that's where they are light on depth at the minute for me to ride out the full campaign. If there were any injuries or anything, you'd be a bit sort of anxious about that. So I think they'll get it done. There's still quite a long time left. It's just the panic sets in because among fans, I think, because the season's started, and that feels like, I think he said this yesterday, as a manager, he wants them all there and sorted nice and early, but he appreciates that that's not the way the window works.
Yeah, 100%. With regards to, obviously, there's, Raksaki is a name that's gone around. It feels like, Sheffield United are doing quite well in progressing on that. It doesn't really feel, Nancy, I mean, unless you can tell us any other, that there's that many shortlisted names that are out there, to be honest with you. Obviously, Raksaki was a rumour. Johnny Rowe obviously seems a little bit more serious, but when it comes to those attacking presences replacing Crysencio Somerville, it feels quite lacking in that department, doesn't it, in terms of rumours?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely quieter than definitely previous years. I think that's been a change for the fans, and it's been interesting to see where obviously Leeds have been linked. Quite often they've turned up at Sheffield United, which is weird. So I don't know if it's kind of an easy thing for somewhere along the line for people to throw Leeds' name into the mix just to draw a bit of interest and get some headlines or whatever. But no, it is quieter. I realise it's not as satisfying from a fan's point of view, because fans are desperate to know who might be coming and know what they could be getting. But I think this kind of speaks to the professionalism of the way that the 49ers are doing it, and more often than not, I would say it probably means they get a good deal, but it just it doesn't satisfy the itch to know what's going on if you're a fan, and you want to do your research on whoever before they turn up at the club. So yeah, it's generally quite quiet.
Yeah, no, it feels like definitely, even like the Premier League, doesn't it? The Premier League, it still feels like there's not that, apart from Chelsea, who don't seem to have a brain when it comes to any sort of recruitment or anything like that. Just bring as many people in as possible. It feels like it's just generally really quiet. Yeah, I feel like Liverpool are symptomatic of that at the minute, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. And some years it goes mental. There's time yet for it to go mental on in terms of rumours or like a big dramatic deal falling through or whatever. But I think there's probably a bit of knock on from the Euros, and things like will have taken a minute to heat up, as they come back from pre-season tours as well. And this will fit into if Leeds want any players on loan from Premier League clubs. A lot of them have taken their younger players with them to America or wherever they've been. I think Spurs were in Japan or something, weren't they? So they've taken them anyway to look at them. Maybe in the absence of some senior players that had a bit of extra time off after the Euros. And I think now we'll start to see, first game of a championship season, managers realise they might need a bit more depth here and there, and you'll start to see things moving, I think.
Yeah, as Farke said as well, it's injury dependent as well, isn't it? God forbid, one of our big players gets injured, then Leeds are probably going to have to look at replacing. But talking about big players, and to round it off really, Nancy, Georginio Rutter, do you see him being a Leeds United player by the end of the window, or is it one of those once again where it's like, I don't know, if a club panics and they think, right, we've got 35 million here, and we need someone in that position, or two positions, obviously can play off the right, can't he, as well? That is just a logistical question. Can Leeds genuinely turn around and almost say he's priceless, or is that not the world that we're living in right now when you're Leeds United?
Oh yeah, I mean, in my mind, he's priceless to them this season. But he's the one. He's the big question mark for me. And people have asked, I think, about Max Verber, but from what Farke said, I expect him to still be around. So of the ones that are left, yeah, Rutter's the big question mark. I think he's like properly committed in terms of wanting to be at Leeds, and you've seen the emotion obviously at the playoff final. Like, I think at that point people were worried because he was tears in his eyes and sort of tapping the badge at full time, and you wondered if that was it. And he played out of his skin on Saturday against Valencia, so that there's plenty to believe that he wants to be at the club, and there's nothing there to make me doubt that. But he is the question mark in terms of the quality he's got, the potential he's got for his age. I think it'd be a big number, because of what Leeds paid in the first place, and the big question mark, which is the concern, is a release clause, and whether he has one, how high that is. I think it will be higher than what Somerville's was, again because of the initial fee for him. But
probably thinking north of 40, aren't you? If we brought him in for 35, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you're definitely talking in those numbers. So, and that is a lot. I know in modern football it's easy for a club to panic, like especially someone like Chelsea to sort of panic drop that much on a player, but it is a lot. And
Nancy, could you see potentially Jordan Miles dipping into like the content you've seen? Like, obviously we've seen Elias Chair, we've seen Buendia, Ben Rama, all these unbelievable players come for really cheap value and do exceptionally well in the Championship. Do you reckon Jordan Miles has got that in his sort of locker? Because it feels like very, very heavily like domestic based players, doesn't it? It feels like the one that was sort of plucked from a place that we just didn't expect and we didn't know really as a collective was Eli Gruev last season. Could you see Leeds doing something like that again?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, to be fair, for them to get someone, sort of off the radar completely, or whatever. Because as soon as you start talking domestic players, like the fees go up, don't they, massively, and that's fair enough. But I kind of like that though, when you get someone and everyone's going, oh, do we know what they can do, or whatever. But no, like obviously keeping Rutter seems massively important for this campaign now with losing Somerville. So let's hope that it kind of drifts away. I mean, to be fair, the last I'd heard was they'd not had anything serious, since the Brighton links. I think they were maybe anticipating that they might come back, and so far what I've been told is that they haven't. So
they're looking at O'Reilly, I think, aren't they, at Celtic?
Yeah. So, and that's always good to see, because you're like, right, they've moved on. So yeah, I think Leeds are quietly confident they'll keep him.
Yeah, 100%. And quick thoughts on Pompey tomorrow. Are you expecting a win? Are you excited heading up to Leeds? And are you heading up tomorrow? I'm sure you are.
Yes, I'll be there. Yeah. No, very excited. I'm expecting a win. I'm hoping for a good performance, but I think you look back at last season and it took a couple of games to get going, didn't it? And the way that they've flown through pre-season and the form of some of the players coming into this, you're hoping for a nice, comfortable, like 2-3-0 win. But I don't think Pompey will completely roll over, because they were a good side last year and they've got an exciting manager in John Massinio. But sounds like they'll be missing Colby Bishop, and he's pretty important for them. So as opening day games go, a recently promoted side, it's the perfect chance for Leeds to properly hit the ground running and get everyone going. So yeah, fingers crossed.
There we go. Well, Nancy, thank you so much. I know you're in a little bit of a rush. Obviously, it's the day before the big game, and you work for like the biggest publication in the world. So thank you so much for joining. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll do it again soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, honestly, no worries. Thanks so much.
All right, Nancy. See you later. So there we go, everybody. That was Nancy Froston of The Athletic. Great news. Great to get Nancy on. Great to summarise exactly what's been going on. I hope that gives you guys a bit of an insight. I know some of you get frustrated as well by obviously not hearing confirmed things and shortlist bits, but see it as like a positive thing. See it as a positive thing that the club are keeping a lot in-house. We have to get things from the other side, of which Nancy's definitely trying to do as well. I can tell you that for a fact. When it comes to Leeds United, you've heard the Hugo Bueno news there from her Wolves contact. You heard a little bit there that maybe Wolves might be trying to keep hold of him this campaign, but it could change. We know with loan players, as she quite rightly said there, Nancy, things change post-Saw. They get back and you think to yourself, we could go in for him. Wolves aren't utilising him, and you start seeing movement there. So really big news when it comes to him. Leeds going to really go for that. Dejan Ljubicic, from what we just sort of learned, it seems a bit dead in the water when it comes to that 3.3 million quid. Leeds really confident of keeping hold of Willy Gnonto, which is great. Once again, we have to wait until the end of the window. See how this transpires, see how this builds. And hopefully Leeds are just able to keep that one in-house. Johnny Rowe, the update there is it's the Leeds need to pay the money. And the negotiation maybe isn't as far on as people think on social media. So we'll have to wait and see how that develops, everybody. But listen, that's going to be the content, everybody. I hope you've thoroughly enjoyed it. There's 2,000 of you in the building. Please slap a like on there before you go. We've got bits on the Patreon if you want a little bit of Hugo Bueno bonus bits as well from an inside source. We've got 3 or 4 Patreon people subscribing. We've got a Portsmouth preview up there. We've got articles and stuff like that. Really good stuff up there, everybody. And thank you so much. As I say, your support's been unbelievable. We've had record numbers this month on the channel. We've had 750,000 views this month, which is amazing. So thank you so much for your continued support. And hopefully I'm going to be bringing you some more continued good stuff throughout the week. We've got a watch along tomorrow. We've got reviews tomorrow. We've got all that good stuff that you guys thoroughly enjoy. So I'll see you from probably around about 12 o'clock. And guys, we will see you on the other side. Thank you so much. As I say, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and see you in a bit. Cheers.